Abkhazia has borders, a flag, a government, and an army, yet most of the world insists it does not exist. How can a country survive when the global system refuses to recognize it? This is the story of a breakaway territory on the Black Sea coast, a place of stunning natural beauty and deep political fractures. For over 3 decades, its people have navigated a reality where their national identity is a matter of fierce debate. To some, they are citizens of a proud, independent nation that fought for its freedom. To the international community at large, they are residents of an autonomous region within the sovereign borders of Georgia, occupied by a foreign power. This geopolitical paradox defines every aspect of life in Abkhazia. The capital, Sukhumi, shows the signs of this struggle, with grand Soviet-era sanatoriums standing empty and pockmarked with shrapnel, a ghostly reminder of a war that ended a generation ago but never truly concluded. The international system, built on the principle of territorial integrity, has largely sided with Georgia, leaving Abkhazia in a state of profound isolation. Its passports are useless for most international travel, its businesses are cut off from global markets, and its political future remains tethered to the whims of its powerful patron Russia. The central question of Abkhazia's existence is not merely a legal or diplomatic one, it is a human story. It is about a people who have built a state from the ground up, with functioning ministries, a police force, and a democratic process, however flawed. They hold elections, collect taxes, and educate their children with a national curriculum. Yet, this entire structure exists in a diplomatic vacuum, unrecognized by the United Nations and considered illegitimate by most of the world. This precarious status forces Abkhazia to rely almost entirely on Russia for its security, its economy, and its connection to the outside world, creating a complex and often suffocating dependency. Understanding Abkhazia requires looking beyond the simple binary of recognition versus non-recognition. It demands an exploration of its long and complex history, the brutal conflict that cemented its de facto separation from Georgia, and the geopolitical chess match that keeps it in limbo. The story of this small territory is a microcosm of larger global tensions, the clash between self-determination and national sovereignty, the enduring legacy of Soviet borders, and the powerful influence of regional superpowers. It is a place caught between its determined pursuit of statehood and a world that pretends it does not see it. Abkhazia's quest for independence is rooted in a history that is both ancient and deeply contested. Long before the modern conflicts, this coastal land was home to the Kingdom of Abkhazia, which rose to prominence in the 8th century after being Christianized under the Byzantine Empire. For a period, it was a significant regional power before being integrated into a unified Georgian kingdom. This shared medieval history is a key point of contention today, with both Abkhaz and Georgian narratives claiming historical primacy over the territory. This long, interwoven past complicates any simple claim to the land, as centuries of shifting allegiances and cultural fusion have left an indelible mark on its identity. The landscape of power shifted dramatically over the centuries. By the 16th century, the region fell under the influence of the Ottoman Empire, which brought Islam and further cultural change. This era ended in the 19th century with the expansion of the Russian Empire. Russia's annexation of Abkhazia in 1864 was a brutal affair, leading to the mass expulsion of the local Muslim population, the Muhajirstvo, many of whom fled to the Ottoman Empire. This event created a vast Abkhaz diaspora, primarily in modern-day Turkey, and fundamentally altered the demographic makeup of the homeland, a historical trauma that continues to fuel the modern Abkhaz national identity and its drive for sovereignty. The 20th century brought the most consequential political reconfiguration. Following the Russian Revolution, Abkhazia experienced a brief period of autonomy before being absorbed into the Soviet Union. In a fateful decision by Stalin in 1931, it was designated an autonomous republic within the Georgian Soviet Socialist Republic. This administrative arrangement laid the groundwork for future conflict. During the Soviet period, policies promoted the settlement of ethnic Georgians in Abkhazia, shifting the demographic balance further. By the late 1980s, ethnic Abkhaz were a minority in their own titular republic, constituting less than 1/5 of the total population, a situation that stoked fears of cultural and political annihilation. As the Soviet Union began to crumble in the late 1980s, long-suppressed ethnic tensions erupted across the Caucasus. In Abkhazia, the growing nationalist movement in Georgia, led by Zviad Gamsakhurdia, advocated for a Georgia for the Georgians policy, which deeply alarmed the Abkhaz and other minorities. The Abkhaz leadership began pushing for greater autonomy and eventually separation from Georgia, fearing that an independent Georgia would dissolve their autonomous status and marginalize them completely. This clash of two burgeoning nationalisms, one for a newly independent Georgia, the other for an Abkhaz entity seeking to escape it, set the stage for a devastating war. The collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 acted as the final catalyst for war. As Georgia declared its independence, the Abkhaz leadership responded by reinstating its 1925 constitution, which defined it as a sovereign state. Tensions escalated rapidly, and in August 1992, the Georgian government sent troops into Abkhazia, ostensibly to protect vital transport links and pursue supporters of the deposed Georgian president. However, the military operation quickly morphed into an all-out war for control of the territory. The ensuing conflict, which lasted for 13 months, was marked by extreme brutality, with both sides committing atrocities in a desperate struggle for survival and dominance. The War of 1992 to 1993 was not just a conflict between Georgian state forces and Abkhaz separatists. It drew in a complex array of actors. The Abkhaz fighters were supported by Media Group, North Caucasus Volunteers in Abkhazia, Confederation of Mountain Peoples Fighters, Archival Group Portrait of Chechen Volunteers, Staka Distribute Equally, volunteers from the North Caucasus, organized under the Confederation of Mountain Peoples of the Caucasus, as well as by elements of the Russian military stationed in the region. This external support proved decisive, tipping the military balance against the larger but more disorganized Georgian forces. The fighting devastated cities like Sukhumi and Gagra, turning bustling seaside resorts into battlegrounds and leaving behind a legacy of destruction that is still visible today. The war's most tragic and lasting consequence was the mass displacement and ethnic cleansing of the Georgian population. Before the conflict, ethnic Georgians constituted nearly half of Abkhazia's population of over 500,000. As Abkhaz forces, backed by their allies, gained the upper hand in September 1993, they drove out the Georgian army and systematically expelled the vast majority of the ethnic Georgian civilian population. Between 200,000 and 250,000 people were forced to flee their homes, many escaping over the treacherous mountain passes into Georgia. The Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, or OSCE, later officially recognized this campaign of forced displacement as ethnic cleansing. This violent demographic upheaval fundamentally reshaped Abkhazia. A diverse, multi-ethnic society was replaced by one where ethnic Abkhaz, despite being a numerical minority before the war, became the dominant group. The empty homes and villages left behind by the fleeing Georgians became a haunting symbol of the conflict's human cost. For Georgians, it is an unresolved humanitarian catastrophe and an occupation of their land. For the Abkhaz, it was the price of securing their homeland and achieving de facto independence. This profound and violent separation created wounds so deep that reconciliation remains a distant prospect, entrenching the political division that defines the region today. Following the Georgian military defeat and the 1994 ceasefire agreement brokered by Russia, Abkhazia existed in a state of suspended animation. Russian peacekeepers were deployed along the ceasefire line, which, in effect, solidified Abkhazia's separation from Georgian control. For the remainder of the 1990s, it operated as a self-governing entity without any formal status on the world stage. It was a pariah state, subject to a strict economic embargo imposed by the Commonwealth of Independent States, including Russia. Despite the hardship, the Abkhaz leadership pushed forward with state building, drafting a new constitution and establishing the institutions of an independent country determined to make their separation permanent. In 1999, after years of governing itself without any external legitimacy, the Abkhaz leadership decided to formalize its ambitions. They held a referendum on independence, which, according to the de facto authorities, resulted in overwhelming support for statehood. Based on this outcome, the Parliament of Abkhazia formally adopted the Act of State Independence. This declaration, however, was made into a diplomatic void. Not a single country in the world recognized it. The international community, led by the United Nations, swiftly condemned the move and reaffirmed its unwavering support for Georgia's territorial integrity, rendering the declaration legally and politically meaningless outside of Abkhazia itself. The lack of recognition meant that Abkhazia remained a de facto state, a territory with effective internal sovereignty, but no external legitimacy. This status posed immense practical challenges. Abkhaz passports were not accepted for international travel, forcing residents to acquire Russian passports to go abroad. The region was cut off from international banking systems, foreign investment, and global trade networks. Everything from importing goods to accessing international aid had to be routed through Russia, which maintained a careful and often ambiguous relationship with the breakaway territory throughout this period, positioning itself as the sole mediator and peacekeeper. This isolation defined the first decade of Abkhazia's self-declared independence. The world map remained unchanged, and in the eyes of international law, Abkhazia was still unequivocally part of Georgia. The Georgian government, while unable to exert control over the territory, never ceased its diplomatic efforts to reintegrate the region, offering various forms of autonomy that the Abkhaz leadership consistently rejected. For the Abkhaz, any proposal that fell short of full sovereignty was seen as a betrayal of their war for independence and the sacrifices it entailed. They had their state, but it was a state no one else would acknowledge. For nearly a decade, Abkhazia's independence declaration remained an internal affair, ignored by the world. This changed dramatically in August 2008. Following a brief but intense war between Russia and Georgia over another breakaway region, South Ossetia, the geopolitical landscape was irrevocably altered. On August 26, 2008, Russia officially recognized the independence of both Abkhazia and South Ossetia. For Abkhazia, this was a moment of triumph, the culmination of a 15-year struggle for legitimacy. The Kremlin framed its decision as a necessary humanitarian intervention to protect the people of Abkhazia from Georgian aggression, but for the West, it was a flagrant violation of international law and an assault on Georgia's sovereignty. Russian recognition was not just a diplomatic gesture, it was a lifeline that cemented Abkhazia's survival and deepened its dependency. Moscow swiftly signed treaties of friendship and cooperation, establishing formal diplomatic relations and providing massive financial and military support. Russia now openly funds a significant portion of the Abkhaz budget, pays pensions to its residents, most of whom hold Russian passports, and has established large military bases on its territory. This presence guarantees Abkhazia's security against any potential Georgian attempt to retake the region, but it also gives Moscow immense leverage over Sukhum's domestic and foreign policy, leading many observers to describe Abkhazia as a Russian protectorate. Following Russia's lead, a small handful of other countries extended recognition, but this diplomatic domino effect was far from impressive. The list includes Nicaragua, Venezuela, Nauru, and Syria, all nations with close political or economic ties to Moscow. This recognition often appeared transactional. Venezuela's acknowledgement in 2009, for example, coincided with multi-billion-dollar Russian arms and energy deals. Similarly, Syria's recognition in 2018 came after Russia's decisive military intervention to support the Assad regime in the Syrian civil war. These recognitions have done little to break Abkhazia's international isolation, instead highlighting its role as a pawn in Russia's broader geopolitical contests with the West. In response, Georgia and its Western allies have actively worked to thwart any further recognition. Georgia immediately severed diplomatic ties with any country that recognized its breakaway regions. The United States has passed laws threatening to cut off aid to any nation that acknowledges Abkhaz or South Ossetian independence. This diplomatic blockade has been highly effective, containing recognition to a small circle of Russian allies. As a result, Abkhazia remains trapped. It has achieved recognition from its powerful patron, but this very patronage has ensured its condemnation and isolation by the wider international community, leaving it more secure but also more dependent than ever. Abkhazia's economy is a direct reflection of its unrecognized status, isolated, heavily subsidized, and overwhelmingly dependent on a single partner. With no access to international financial institutions like the World Bank or IMF, and with global trade sanctions rendering direct commerce with most countries impossible, the region's economic survival hinges on Russia. Moscow provides direct budgetary support that covers more than half of the government's expenditures, funding everything from infrastructure projects to the salaries of public sector employees. The Russian ruble is the de facto currency, further integrating the Abkhaz economy into Russia's sphere of influence and away from the global market. The main pillars of the local economy are agriculture, tourism, and Russian financial aid. The subtropical climate allows for the cultivation of citrus fruits, tea, and tobacco, but production levels are far below their Soviet-era peaks due to a lack of investment and access to markets beyond Russia. The tourism sector is perhaps the most visible engine of the economy. Abkhazia's stunning Black Sea coastline, with resorts like Gagra and Pitsunda, was a premier destination for the Soviet elite. Today, it primarily attracts Russian tourists seeking an affordable seaside vacation. While this provides crucial seasonal income, the industry's potential is capped by its reliance on a single market and the dilapidated state of much of its infrastructure. Energy production is another key sector, centered on the massive Inguri hydroelectric power plant, which straddles the ceasefire line with Georgia. In a rare and honestly quite surreal example of post-conflict cooperation, the dam is jointly managed by both Abkhaz and Georgians. The power station provides the vast majority of Abkhazia's electricity, with the surplus being sent to Georgia. This shared dependency creates a fragile but necessary link between the two sides, a pragmatic arrangement born of necessity that stands in stark contrast to the political deadlock. However, beyond this unique case, opportunities for economic engagement with the outside world are virtually non-existent. The lack of international recognition creates immense barriers to private investment and sustainable growth. Foreign companies are unwilling to risk investing in a territory with an unresolved legal status, where property rights are not protected by international law. This leaves the economy stagnant and vulnerable, with limited opportunities for young people beyond working in the tourism sector, or for the state. The economic model is one of survival, not dynamic growth. It is an economy kept afloat by Russian subsidies and a steady stream of Russian tourists, but one that lacks the diversification and integration needed for genuine long-term prosperity. For the approximately 245,000 people living in Abkhazia, daily life is a constant negotiation with the realities of their disputed status. On the surface, things appear normal. A de facto government, headed by a president and a parliament, manages public services. Children attend schools where they learn the Abkhaz language, and the streets of Sukhumi are patrolled by a local police force. Yet the limitations of this reality are ever present. Traveling abroad is a major challenge. For most, it is only possible with a Russian passport, which has become a near necessity for anyone wanting to connect with the outside world. This dual citizenship is a pragmatic choice, but it also symbolizes the erosion of Abkhazia's declared sovereignty. Internal politics are vibrant and often contentious, a sign of a society that, despite its isolation, has not succumbed to authoritarianism. Presidential elections are fiercely contested, and public protests have led to the resignation of more than one leader. Debates rage over issues like the potential sale of land to foreigners, a red line for many Abkhaz who fear being bought out and losing control of their hard-won territory. Another pressing issue is the repatriation of the Abkhaz diaspora from countries like Turkey and Syria. While seen as a way to bolster the Abkhaz population, integrating these newcomers into a society with limited resources presents its own set of challenges. The situation for the remaining ethnic Georgian population, mostly concentrated in the Gali district, is particularly difficult. While the overt violence of the war is over, they live in a state of legal and political limbo. Many are denied Abkhaz citizenship, restricting their property rights and political participation. They are caught between two worlds, viewed with suspicion by the Abkhaz authorities and often seen as a political tool by Tbilisi. Their access to education in the Georgian language has been curtailed, part of a broader effort by the de facto government to foster a singular Abkhaz identity, further marginalizing a community still scarred by the trauma of war and displacement. Ultimately, life in Abkhazia is defined by a mix of pride, resilience, and uncertainty. There is immense pride in their de facto independence, and the preservation of their culture and language against overwhelming odds. But there is also a deep-seated uncertainty about the future. Young people face a choice between staying in a place with limited economic prospects or seeking opportunities in Russia. The dream of full global recognition seems more distant than ever, leaving Abkhazia dependent on a patron whose interests may not always align with their own. They have a country, but it remains a phantom state for most of the world. Before the video ends, I'd love to hear your opinion. Should Abkhazia be recognized as an independent country or not?